So, good morning, Parveen. I certainly am delighted to participate in the 39 Essex Chambers at home and around the world series of discussions. And particularly delighted that you've agreed to join me today. And it's my pleasure, my real pleasure, to talk to you, hailing from Mumbai, as you do. And for those who have not met you, which can't be that many, I'm sure, but you are the Chief Legal Officer of Mahindra Lifespaces Development Limited, a role that you've recently taken up, previously coming from Tata. And I just thought it would be lovely for us to have a conversation this morning, and particularly to speak to you as a prominent woman in law in India. I want to explore with you, if you don't mind, your new legal career. But first of all, perhaps, can you tell us something about your journey into the law? We've had a little discussion about it, and I felt that it was really fascinating. And certainly practitioners here and around the world would be really interested to learn about your journey. So please tell us.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much, Karen. And it's wonderful to be here this morning with you. I actually studied my designing before I even thought of studying law. I paint well, and I come from a family of engineers and architects. So it was a natural choice to be in that profession. And while I was studying it, because my father was in business and he was dealing with many lawyers due to some litigation, I realized that the understanding of the law is an essential and not an option, because every decision that you make requires an understanding of the law. I was equally fascinated that you couldn't really make decisions for yourself and you needed somebody else to guide you. So, like Michelle Obama has now said, where don't let anyone speak for you and don't rely on others to fight for you, I so relate to that back then, because that's exactly the reason why I started studying law, where I wanted to speak for myself and I wanted to fight for myself. And then I started the journey for law. I went on to actually get the gold medal. But to be honest, I did not even know the gold medal existed. I was actually worried that I would fail, because I was after an entire 3 years of art and paint and in a magical world coming into serious studying, and I wasn't sure I would excel at it. And therefore, I was working harder than the other students because I was worried I would fail. And that's how I got my gold medal. And thereafter, I have consistently worked in a manner where, for me, the advice that you give should be also worth its weight in gold. And that's how I try to live my life every day.
So, Parveen, during your studies and as you entered into the legal profession, what were the particular challenges that you faced?
Most of the challenges came when, after you finish your education and you have to get into the real world, either as a litigator or as into corporate practice. And as a woman, although I am from a family which gives equal opportunities, a very supportive husband, with all of that, when you really go out into the real world, you don't really fit the stereotype. You're petite, you're small, you're soft-spoken, and it naturally is viewed that you may not be a great negotiator or you may not make a great counsel in court. But you have to work that much harder to prove them wrong. As a woman, when you get married, there's a natural tendency for people to think that you're now probably going to stop working because you have household responsibilities. And you have to then again prove them wrong. Then when you go on to have your first child and your second child, at every level, unfortunately, the woman has to keep proving that she's capable of higher responsibility, capable of multitasking, capable of being a great negotiator, capable of working at odd hours, and you're consistently over many years compared to any male counterpart trying to prove yourself that they're wrong. That's, I'd say, the toughest journey that any woman, according to me, faces, not just in the legal profession, but in every profession, because it is that much harder due to the perceptions that have been created about what a woman can do. But what I realized is it's just about compartmentalizing my day. You have to stay away from the cynicism and the negative talk. You have to be clear on the non-negotiable. And I stuck to it. If it means that I have to leave at 6:30 because there are responsibilities, there are commitments at home, you do that because you know that you're being productive for the rest of the day. And you just do not have to be bogged down by the perceptions which are there. It was more about being true to the work and not looking at external endorsement to recognize my value.
Well, that's a very, very good piece of advice for all young lawyers, I think, particularly young women lawyers with household responsibilities. But you started off in private practice, didn't you? And now you've climbed very rapidly, by the looks of it, the corporate ladder. How did you move from private practice into the corporate field?
So I come, given that I had a balance and certification in both designing and with my law degree, it gave me an edge where I was able to understand the business side of what corporates do. So by and large, I have been in the real estate and infrastructure industry and sector. And as a sector, there is a lot of approvals, the architectural drawings, the government approvals for construction. And when you have an ability as a lawyer to understand the technical documents and give, therefore, a combined advice, in my view, that carries a lot of different weight as to what we bring to the table. So it was a natural choice for me where when I was in private practice and with a law firm, there are a lot of documents that I was drafting where it is marked for client to confirm. Because they are business-related decisions, they're commercial negotiations. And when I joined into the corporate side, there is no client to confirm. You are the client, and you are required to coordinate with the technical departments to understand what the team needs to negotiate to be able to conclude that transaction. And bridging that business gap with legal is something I started enjoying a lot more. And it made it more fulfilling as an experience when you consummate that transaction in its holistic sense.
Managing the workload as corporate counsel, is that, would you say, very different from when you're in private practice, or is it broadly the same with the same challenges?
The practice between a corporate lawyer and that of a law firm practice is slightly different. I would have to admit that. The benefit of being in a corporate is you still manage to have a work-life balance. A private practice at times can be extremely demanding. One of my initial reasons for shifting was also that where it would give me a work-life balance to an extent. But over the years, the role of an in-house counsel itself has grown because of the number of corporate scandals, the increasing audit requirements. So therefore, the pressure over the last 20 years has increased on an in-house team to be able to multi-challenge, give not just generalist advice, it has to be specific. There are no disclaimers that an in-house counsel can rely on while giving a legal opinion, and it has to be conclusive on the risks pros and cons for the business to take a decision. There are also added responsibilities in relation to employee grooming. You have board meetings. You have to prepare those board notes, reports for the audit committee. These are additional responsibilities to be carried along when you're part of a corporate. And in a sense, then it does balance out, though it's slightly different nature of work, but the workload then becomes the same.
It seems very much as if you're enjoying your life as corporate counsel. Are you glad you made the switch?
Yes, I'm absolutely glad that I made this switch. I have thought many times when I have been trying to shift jobs whether I should get back into private practice. And I somehow have always come to the conclusion that it is a corporate which gives me a broad approach to the industry, which I enjoy. I also enjoy a lot of mentoring. I have my personal initiatives also on mentoring, and being part of a corporate allows me to play that role of a mentor, where it's whether the team that you're mentoring to groom them so that they can rise in their career, or the other women in the organization where you guide them, keep them motivated so that they continue to be in the workforce. You get these opportunities when you're part of a large conglomerate to be able to contribute back in ways to help people grow. The Mahindras also has a lot of social causes that they support, a lot of non-government organizations that they support. And I like to work on those areas. There are areas on sustainability and climate change and environmental impact and other such initiatives which also take place. I like to contribute to that. So in a sense, it gives me a sense of purpose apart from just work. So that's the balance that I enjoy as part of a corporate.
When you, and presumably you do, but when you have to choose outside counsel or arbitrators or experts, or you participate in the decisions for the appointment of those sort of people, what is it that Mahindra that you look for when you're trying to decide who it is you should be appointing to these roles? And how do you deal in particular with the gender balance issues that in fact the whole world is now engaged in considering?
I think our role as a woman, while we must help other women, and I try to, but for me, to be fair, it is the best candidate. And at that point, I do not like to see whether it is a male or a female or otherwise, which needs to fill the position, whether it is a choice of an arbitrator, a mediator, or a counsel which is being selected. It is based purely on competence that one needs to select, and I continue to make that. It does happen at times that I do find that women can be much better performers because they're objective, they're balanced, they bring in a humane touch to the entire issue. And somehow, because a lot of working women have other responsibilities that they carry, they tend to be focused, very clear in their advice, their drafting skills, because they want to maximize the time that they are putting in and give you a quality output. So I find that equally a good balance because that's exactly what I bring to the table. And therefore, I like to work with people who bring that same level of agility, ownership, and accountability. So for me, a choice of an arbitrator or a mediator is not gender specific, it's competence based. And if they're able to bring any other skill set on a technical front, it does bring in a lot of value. It may not be a different qualification necessarily, but when they're involved in other activities in life, whether they're extremely well read in their literature or they are even doing other kind of volunteering activities. All of it shapes how you become as a lawyer, and it brings in a different value, and I see that.
That's really insightful. You spoke just a moment ago, you talked about your love of mentoring and grooming younger team members to be the best that they can be. One of my experiences as a woman in law and looking at young women coming through is that they very often are quite reticent to push themselves forward, that they often don't realize all these, what I think would generically be described as soft skills. They don't realize that they have all these additional skills that they can bring to the table. And so the question really is, in your mentoring work, is there a way in which you are able to communicate these qualities to these young women to actually get them to bring them out and to bring themselves forward, push themselves forward?
Yes, Karen, I think what I have seen throughout many interactions with women, not just in the legal profession, across different strata of society, different professions, is that women always have a tendency naturally to shortchange themselves, whether they're negotiating for their packages or their position or even the client brief. And even if they're capable, they of much more, they say it as it is. So therefore, they themselves tend to benchmark it at a lower level than what they feel they can achieve. So the role that I like to play and I continue to play when I'm mentoring is to encourage the women to know that they have the ability and they must strive. There are a lot of people, and I have had colleagues because of their multitasking issues, where they're not climbing the corporate ladder or being senior partner in a reputed law firm. They probably tend to stop. And we must remember that we're working not just for compensation or for a position, we're working for self-respect. And once we understand that, there's no need to prove to somebody else what you have achieved, because your achievement is your own journey and it's based on your ambition and what is really possible within the constraints that are available. So when I, over the period of years, realized at the end of the day, I started to think as to what is it that the three things that I'd like to do with my hand, with my head, and with my heart. And I realized that until I don't mentor, whether it is women, whether it is young adults, I have not completed my third set of doing something with my heart. And that's the reason I started an initiative called Amwizer, where I invite industry experts who, over the years, we've networked with them, we've built excellent relationships with each other. But that does not translate into knowledge for somebody else as another woman or another younger lawyer or a young adult who's starting out into their workforce. And a lot of it is paid, which people may not be able to afford. A lot of the leadership training comes to us when we are already in a management position in a corporate, when we may not really need it. So I started this to be able to bring the world's best speakers at no cost to people who really need it, who are thirsty for knowledge, where it is a transfer of knowledge to them. So that's what is the whole program, about. It's week on week, every week. And I'd say to all women or all young people who are working that you just have to keep on working and don't stop until you are proud.
That's really interesting. In fact, that's the kind of initiative which is easily transferable to any part of the world, and hopefully people that watch this discussion will actually pick up on some of these ideas that you have. They really are quite inspiring. Now,
Thank you.
I really can't finish a conversation, although we all know We've heard lots and lots about how different people are dealing with the challenges of the pandemic. But perhaps you can tell us briefly, what are the principal challenges for you as a lawyer in India to keep going, to keep your teams together during the pandemic? We've lived with it throughout 2020, but it looks as if we're with it for at least another 6 months or more. So what were and what are the main challenges for you?
The pandemic, not just for me, I'd say for everyone, was a step back into humanity, humility, and just giving back to society. I think we were one of the lucky ones where the pandemics honestly not really hurt us. But what really hurts is when we look around and we see when there is a sudden shutdown in the economy, in the infrastructure, especially in the Indian context, where the local trains were stopped, the courts are shut down. A lot of the lawyers could not continue to advise their clients because they were dependent on the court libraries for their books. They were dependent on laptops and computers, which was the infrastructure of the court to be able to type their briefs, their petitions for their clients. And they were suddenly out of work. So I had two initiatives. One, I started a blog called Shelves of Kindness, where I reached out to a lot of law firms, a lot of people in private practice within the Indian context, different cities, to be able to contribute books, which we would then transfer to people who needed these books, and we mapped them as to basis the area of practice and the book that is really required so that they could continue their practice of law. And it was really heartwarming where people gave books by the hundreds because either they had double copies or they had it earlier edition, or they were simply shutting down and downsizing their office space and had no space either in their homes or their offices to keep these books. And they opened their hearts and gave back to people so that they could work. The other area was definitely the technology space, where a lot of people in the Indian context did not have, and I'm sure much like in many other countries, did not have laptops, iPads, tablets to be able to continue work. And I had a drive where I requested and again reached out to people to contribute either new or in working condition, laptops, computers of any kind, of any make, to be able to give it. And we gave that back to many people to be able to continue doing their work. So that's what I did in the legal space. Even on the education side, when I saw many students who were trying to attend Zoom classes through mobile phones, it is really not possible to do math or complex geography in any sense on a mobile phone sitting in a small little house in India, in a kitchen probably, because there's no place to listen quietly to what the teacher has to say over a phone. We had a drive again for computers and stationery for them to be able so that they could continue their studies in a better way and clear this entire academic year, which I know a lot of them would have dropped out if they did not have these facilities. I'm sure there are thousands of more people that need it, and I was absolutely not in a position to reach out to them. But I know there were many other initiatives elsewhere that tried to help as much as we could. But of course, we're still open, and if anybody still needs and has anything to donate to, always happy to give it, because there are always people who need. And we must do what we can for those in need.
Absolutely. And I think I agree with you. And if there's one thing that this pandemic has brought home to all of us and has demonstrated, actually, is that in times of real crisis, it absolutely brings out the best in people. People finally remember their humanity. It's really all that matters. And it really puts people in a position where they do reach out to other people, and they do remember that actually being alive is being connected, being with other people. and ensuring that everybody has a shot at life. And of course, that's particularly important when we're talking about young people, whether in business or in education. So, that's an absolutely wonderful thing that you've been doing. And as you say, many people around the world have been doing exactly the same thing. And, we all hope that we and they continue along these lines long after the pandemic has finished. And we hope that it will come to an end at some point. So really, in conclusion, what would be, you say, your perhaps 2 big hopes for the future, 2 big positive outcomes from the pandemic and for women and young people hoping to make for themselves a career in law?
So to the women, I would say you have to stop thinking of empowerment. There is no external power that needs to be put within us. We are strong enough and we already have the power to aim high, work hard, and care deeply about what we believe in. And even if you stumble, which we all will at some point, you just have to keep the faith, get right back up, and really never listen to anyone who says you can't, and just go on. It is as simple as this, and all you have to do every single day. And believe me, you just look 1 year later and you really will not believe where you have reached in that entire journey. To all the young lawyers who are starting their career in law, I would say, just like Larry Smith, I wish you success, but not good luck. Because luck has little to do with success. You're going to need preparation, a lot of passion, and dedicated practice to have a brilliant career in law. Thank you so much.
Parveen, thank you very much for joining me this morning. It's been wonderful to speak to you. I wish you good health and happiness. And I hope that actually we may meet in person sooner than we expect. Take care of yourself. Lovely to talk to you.
Thank you so
Bye-bye.
much for having me here today. I look forward to meeting you soon.